观众朋友，欢迎收看新唐人推出的生活服务类节目《最佳方案》。提起意外伤害，有一个特别的类别呢，就是医疗事故。很多人可能觉得医疗事故似乎离我们挺遥远的。我们来看一个美国医药中心公布的一个数据：美国每年因为用药不当而受到伤害的人数呢，大约是150万，而每年的死亡人数也有9万多人。这其中只是用药不当，不包括手术等方面的医疗事故。看了这些数据啊，我想我们还是安下心来听听莱特律师说说怎么样面对医疗事故的案件吧。
Medical malpractice means the negligence or fault of a doctor or a hospital when a medical practitioner or a hospital either hurts the patient by doing something that they shouldn't have done, or hurts the patient by not doing something that they should have done. In evaluating a medical malpractice case is what kind of injury occurred and how did that injury happen? What's the mechanism of the injury? And could it have been avoided by proper medical practice? Let me give you an example. One of the categories of medical malpractice would be, let's say, surgical injuries, surgical accidents. And this could be, for example, where a surgeon cuts or damages an organ that they shouldn't be injuring during the surgery. For example, they do a gallbladder operation and they cut something, one of the ducts, or injure the liver or injure some other organ, and that results in an injury to the patient. Or they puncture a vessel and the patient bleeds to death. Or they suture the patient wrong, they sew up something wrong, and the blood flow is cut off, and a portion of that organ dies, or the patient becomes septic and dies or is seriously hurt. So these are that type of case. The other type of case is you'd say, well, the doctor didn't do something that should have been done. And this covers a lot of territory. For example, the area of misdiagnosis, where, for example, the signs and symptoms that the patient had when they went to see the doctor should have said, well, this patient probably has this illness, and we're going to test to see if they have this illness, and they don't do it properly. And the diagnosis is not made, and the patient gets worse because the diagnosis is not made. I'll give you another example. Sometimes people come into an emergency room. They may complain of chest pain. Let's say the doctor, instead of doing the proper evaluation, says, well, what you really have, sir, is indigestion because you had a spicy meal. And you're laughing, but this has happened many times. And as it turns out, that's not why they're having the pain. And they walk out of the hospital, and they may collapse and die right on the street. And this has happened, because really what was going on is they were having a heart attack. So the doctor misdiagnosed the condition. So those are two sort of classic types of cases where there's a misdiagnosis.
如果您碰到以上2种情况的任何一种，并且对身体造成了伤害，那你就需要找律师了。莱特律师告诉我们呢，医疗事故案件呢是最难打的案件之一，因为律师面对呢都是专业的医生。那我们在找医疗事故的律师上呢有哪些标准呢？
Malpractice law is a very, very specialized area. The attorneys who practice in that area must have a great deal of medical knowledge themselves, must have a great deal of experience dealing with doctors. They must know, in some instances, almost or more than doctors themselves, about that area. So the client needs to find an attorney to talk to who can demonstrate that they have had many malpractice cases, they have had successful results, they have won malpractice cases. Malpractice cases are also very, very expensive for the lawyers to prosecute because they need a lot of expert witness opinions, expert testimony. The records sometimes are very, very expensive. So you need an attorney or law firm that has the resources to prosecute a big case. And also have the medical knowledge to go into court and effectively present the medical aspects of the case. Because cases like this can be very, very complicated. You must be able to communicate to the jury sometimes very complicated medical ideas in a simple, understandable way that they can grasp. Because when you're presenting a case to the jury in a medical malpractice case, if the jury becomes confused, if the jury's uncertain, if they do not really understand what the medical issue is, then the injured party is going to lose that case. Because it's very difficult for a jury, in the first place, to say, this doctor did something that was wrong. This doctor or hospital did something that was negligent. Remember, the attorney for the doctor or the hospital is also trying to persuade them that nothing was done wrong. Unfortunately, this patient just didn't get better, and it wasn't the doctor's fault or it wasn't the hospital's fault. So an attorney representing a client in a medical malpractice case really has to know how to effectively convey and explain the medical aspects of the case to somebody who doesn't know anything about it. That's the key.
作为一个律师，要想在法庭上证明医生在治疗上是有过失的，这确实是个难度非常大的事情。所以我们的观众如果碰到这样的案件，那在找律师上就得找那种最专业的了。在采访中呢，我了解到莱特律师在2014年就帮助他的医疗事故的客户赢得了1800万美金的赔偿。所以我个人觉得，有事找莱特应该还是比较可靠的。2014年，多起航空事故引起人们的关注：韩亚航空失事、马航370失踪、马航17被击落。临近2015年，亚航失事。人们在心痛之余，也在关注怎样在法律层面给空难人员的家属们应该有的补偿。莱特律师在这方面是行业公认的专家，我们来看看他有什么样的建议。
Typically, what happens is that a family who has a family member that's killed on one of those aviation accidents is very confused, very traumatized. The airlines are barraging them with questions. Sometimes the airlines, in the guise of trying to or showing that they're helping the family, the airlines know in those situations that they're going to be sued. So the family has to be very aware that they're in a situation where they need legal counsel right away. And this may encompass how to get the person's effects, what do we do about recovering the body, how do we find out what really happened in this crash. Those facts are hard to get right away. So they should be looking early on to find an attorney who has experience dealing with major aviation crashes. The compensation is going to be determined based on the law, generally speaking, of the domicile, meaning of the person who was killed or in the crash. Give you an example, the Asiana crash that took place in California, where there were many Chinese nationals on that plane. There's going to be a tremendous amount of litigation as to what law should apply to those individuals. Should the Chinese law apply to them? Should the law of California apply to them? And so forth. And depending upon what the court decides, the damages that they get could be very, very different. The person was a citizen of People's Republic of China, but was working here in the United States at the time and was killed in the crash. And the issue there, the airline tried to get the law of the People's Republic of China to apply to her case, and that would have resulted in a very, very small award. And we had to fight to get the judge here to accept the idea that you can't discriminate against a Chinese person, and they should apply the same law to that person as it was applied to anybody else who was on that plane. And the judge, after seeing what we submitted, decided that there should be no discrimination against this person and that they should receive the same legal handling, the same type of law as anyone else on that plane crash, which was, in that particular case, the law of the state of New York. But in the United States, it's all based on the individual circumstances of each case. So there's a different viewpoint. So for example, and again, this is very troubling to some people. Let's say a student is here, came over here and is studying maybe to be a doctor or maybe to be a chef or studying to be an engineer. Has never earned anything. There's no earnings history at all. Not supporting anybody. Not married. This is what's called a single non-dependent type of case. Well, that case may only be worth so much. The person sitting in the next seat who's killed may be the father of 5 children who is earning money and supporting his family, a wife and children. That individual's case may be worth 10 times what the student's case is worth. And that troubles people at times. But that is the law of the United States.
很多华人都知道，在中国，空难的赔偿呢是按照人数来计算的。现在一个人的赔偿金额呢大概是7万美金左右，不管你是什么职业以及承担的家庭责任。我觉得在这一点上，美国的法律确实更合情合理。一个5个孩子的父亲，一旦不幸遇到了空难，那他家庭遇到的困难是不可想象的。当然了，谁都不想遇到这样的事情，我们只是在学习法律知识。我们更衷心的希望航空公司2015年能紧抓安全，让我们的生活少些担心，多份舒心。好，感谢收看本期的节目，我们下期节目再见。